Good evening and welcome to Elder Abuse Awareness Continues. I'm Antionette Warren, and I'm founder and CEO of Warren Publishing Group, which is a Senior Advocacy Alliance that provides information to seniors through a e-newsletter and philanthropy, community outreach, and a speakers bureau. And we have been bringing presentations to the community for a couple of years now to make them aware of elder abuse, to prepare them to get their business in order so they won't become victims of elder abuse. Tonight, we are going to be covering beneficiary designation and healthcare directives. I'd like to thank our co-presenters, which is Alameda County Care Alliance. I'm not sure if they're present or not. If you are, please speak up. And our other co-presenter is the National Association, excuse me, of 100 Black Women. And is there anyone here to represent them? Okay. So both of these co-presenters have been supporting Warren Publishing Group in presenting this information on elder abuse awareness. I'd like to introduce my good friend and partner, Jorick Gaines, who will come and share with us some information on himself and how money works. Jorick?
Might help if I unmute myself. Good evening, everybody. I'm Jorick Gaines. Oh, unmute. You start speaking. I'm unmuted. Okay. All right. Oh, Jorick Gaines. I am a How Money Works educator. We teach people how money works because it's not taught in schools, and most people have no clue how money really works. So we have launched our initiative, Teach It Forward, where we are teaching how money works / financial literacy classes everywhere, all over the country, to schools, colleges, churches, families, and even corporations, employees. So if you know someone that might like us to teach a class at no cost and receive a complimentary copy of our best-selling book, How Money Works, Stop Being a Sucker, reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jorick. So what we're going to do is turn this over to our Zoom administrator, Amy. And what we're going to do is go to freewill.com and begin the slide presentation. So Amy, if you would share your screen and let's get started. Thank you.
Okay, so when you get to the Freewill website, this is what you'll see. To get to the beneficiary designation, you scroll down and it'll be right here. You click that and you'll plan your beneficiaries. So this process is very simple. First, you'll put in your basic details, right? Your name, your birth date, your phone number, your address. And then it'll ask you, what kind of assets do you have? Non-probate assets are passed on to beneficiaries without regard to their owner's will and without having to go through probate. This means they can avoid potential costs and delays of probate court proceedings and can often be distributed to beneficiaries quickly after the owner's passing. Some examples of common non-probate assets are retirement accounts, brokerage accounts, and life insurance policies. Freewill takes the security of our users' data seriously. We do not collect any sensitive information that would affect your privacy or security of your assets. Any information that you enter will be encrypted and stored securely and maintained in your personal account for your record-keeping purposes. So here's where you would add all the assets you have. For the purpose of this demonstration, we'll just have like the bank account life insurance. So once you've inputted all the assets, you go to, these are all my assets. And for each of your assets, you would designate who your beneficiaries are. So you see, we have a bank account, Bank of America Life Insurance, the estimate of 20K to 50K estimated value. And our beneficiary is 100% to John Doe and 100% to Alan Smith. And if you forgot an asset, you can just add it right here with the add an asset button. And this is where you would choose which asset it is. It's like stocks, life insurance, IRA, 401k, annuity, or other. So for life insurance, which institution manages it, we'll just pick Bank of America again, how much it's worth, and the asset nickname if you want. So now you see we have two of them. And to choose who the beneficiaries are, you would click on this button, right? And it'll bring you to this page where if you want, you can choose to donate some of this to a nonprofit such as Save the Children or Salvation Army, or you could choose to leave nothing to charity. And then here's where you would list each beneficiary for this asset. So for example, we'll say Ellen Smith, who's a relative, and we could say she gets 50% of it. And we could add another person, right, to give the other 50% to. So this is how you could break down how much of each asset will go to each beneficiary. And that's basically all there is to it. So for each asset you add, you just choose the beneficiaries you want to add, how much goes to each person, and just continue to do that for all your assets. And that's it.
Thank you, Amy.
Let me chime
Yep.
in a little on that, if I may.
Please.
As it said earlier, one thing I will say, life insurance wasn't the best example there. No offense, Amy, because life insurance names a beneficiary on the life insurance policy, and you don't want to create a problem by putting that there and naming potentially, messing it up, because the insurance company is going to honor what's on the life insurance policy, not if you change it somewhere else. So just be aware of that. The other thing I want to say about beneficiaries, and I've seen this problem happen more than once, where a person, some people, it's kind of to set it and forget it. Once they set up the life insurance or they put their beneficiaries on at work on their 401k or their brokerage account, like their TD Ameritrade or something of that sort, if that company's still around. I want to say they merged with somebody. But anyway, and they don't check it again. And I have seen on more than one occasion where a beneficiary, well, for instance, here's probably the most common one. You're married, you get a divorce. You get married again. You don't take your first spouse off of your 401k as the beneficiary. You pass and you disinherited your current spouse, because the 401k plan administrator is going to honor the beneficiary that's listed on the 401k.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they might even know you're married, but the reality is they've got to protect their assets. And so they're going to honor what you put on there. So I highly recommend you review your beneficiaries regularly, at least every other year. You should look at them once a year, but I know in reality, people don't do that, but you should look at them occasionally, every couple of years, because you get up a certain age, you have grandkids you might want to add, and don't name a grandkid, name someone else, because if they're a minor, they cannot receive the assets. And someone will have to be appointed to to look over those assets. So if you're naming, I have people all the time, oh, I'm going to name my grandchild. I said, no, don't name the grandchild, because then a court will have to appoint someone to be the, what is it, the conservator of those
The guardian.
asset, guardian, or whatever the case may
Mhm.
be. But they're not of legal age, so they can't. It's like being entering into a contract. You can't enter into a contract if you're not of legal age. And then review them. I had one case where one of my clients had her sister named as a beneficiary on her annuity, and her sister had passed. And so we had to alter that. Fortunately, we looked at it. Not that she's got any problems, but just be aware of that. And you can name multiple beneficiaries, as it just said here. If you want to name your church, give your church a portion, say 10%, or you got a favorite charity when you leave 10% to, and then you can leave the other 80%, if you will, to your friends, family, or relatives. Now, one other thing, if you are changing a beneficiary, if you are married, you have a spouse, and you want to change beneficiaries, you cannot change the beneficiaries without the spouse's written consent, because in California, we are a community property state. And if my wife has a 401k and she changes the beneficiary without my consent, that's going to be a problem, because she's in essence giving away my 50%. Something to think about. People try that. I've had people call. I won't go into that. That was a weird story. But I did have a lady call me up and said, this is the weirdest thing probably ever happened in my career. I think my husband's, I don't trust him. He might kill me. I want to change the beneficiary. I said, well, here's the problem. You can't change the beneficiary unless he authorizes it. She said, well, I know he's not going to do that. So anyway, that's my story on the beneficiaries. There are all kinds of horror stories out there. And of course, family ends up in court. In most cases, you're going to lose.
So then, is it wise to have a beneficiary early in your marriage?
You mean other than your spouse? Well, I don't want to get into marriage counseling, but I said, if you don't want to leave your assets to your spouse, you shouldn't get married, probably. Yeah, if it's pre-marriage, of course, that's different. It's an asset you had prior to the marriage, and you should already have a beneficiary name. But those are the things people fight over in divorces. You know, how much of your, I want my part of the 401k. You know, I want my part of the pension. I want whatever. And that's why you can't change that.
So are there other questions for Jorick? So let me look in the chat here. So if there's no questions for this particular segment, beneficiary designation, we'll move on to the healthcare directive.
And Amy, I'm gonna say something in advance of that, is, if I may. Every time I talk about this subject in a group, I always, especially if they're a mature audience, I always ask, how many of you have kids at home over 18, or even grandkids in some cases over 18, that technically is your dependent? You're providing for them. And invariably, almost several hands go up. And I say, do you realize, and let's use the case of a kid that's in college maybe, and still at home. I said, do you realize if that kid is in an automobile accident, in a coma, there needs to be some decisions made medically. You cannot make those decisions without your healthcare medical director. People go, what do you mean? They're not my dependent. No, they're an adult by law. So keep that in mind if that's your situation, or if you know somebody in that situation. Check with them, make sure they have that document in place. Or I have that, I think I have that confused with the HIPAA form. But anyway, you know what I mean.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, for the healthcare directive, you go to the Freewill website. You go to the top and click on for individuals. you go to their products. And as you scroll down, you'll see will and trust. You'll see beneficiary designations. And here you'll see advanced healthcare directive. So what is an advanced healthcare directive? An advanced healthcare directive is a legal document that specifies your wishes for end-of-life healthcare and who should make healthcare decisions on your behalf if you are unable to do so. It is also known as a living will, advanced directive, or a medical directive. So let's get started. So it'll ask for your personal information, your physician. This is where you'll select your preferred physician and hospital for your end-of-life care. An agent who will make the healthcare decisions if you're unable to do so. Values. The most important thing to share with healthcare providers are your goals and values. For example, what does quality of life mean to you? Do you have any religious or spiritual beliefs that you would like respected? We acknowledge that this specific document might not address all moral or religious views, and we encourage you to reach out to your trusted community to ensure your wishes are reflected. And part 5 is the wishes. Here you can leave specific instructions for what end-of-life care you'll want to receive if you have a terminal condition that will lead to your death in a relatively short period of time. You become permanently unconscious or realize that the potential risks of treatment will outweigh the potential benefits. And the signature is for last. So here's your personal information, the gender, the birth date, the address, and if this is your first advanced healthcare directive or not. So let's start the ideal choice of physician. Am I saying that right? Physician. No. So you would put the name of your primary physician, their email address, and their physical address or the mailing address, whichever it is.
Of the physician, right? Okay.
Physician. I think I'm saying it wrong, but whatever. This is where you put in your preferred hospital. It's like the name and their address. For the sake of this demonstration, we're just gonna skip right through all these, but you would fill those out. And the primary agent who would make the decision, who would make your healthcare decisions when you're unable to, their name, their email address, their mailing address, their phone number, what's their relationship to you, sister, friend, son, relative, and when should your agent be able to make decisions for you, right? After you sign this form, only after my physician determines I cannot make my own decisions, or on a certain date that I will specify. Please note that your decision about whether to appoint a healthcare agent affects the options that appears in values and wishes section. If you decide to remove or add a healthcare agent, make sure to adjust your values and wishes accordingly. And here you can specify who cannot make your healthcare decisions on your behalf. This section is optional. All right, thank you. Is there anyone you would not like to be your healthcare agent? And if there is, you would specify their name here. And this section helps your agent and loved ones know what matters most to you so that they can make decisions about their healthcare that align with those values. Remember
Hey,
that
Amy,
each option. Yes?
I just want to pause on that part right before we go further. Because I know for some people, they might be going, what do you mean somebody I do not want to make my healthcare decisions?
Right.
Generally, that's somebody that's all emotion and they're not going to be thinking right. And that might be somebody really close to you, like your favorite child or grandchild who doesn't want to let go, because quality of life is more important than just being not even alive, than living. I had to make that decision for my grandmother who raised all of us. And fortunately, no one was around other than me. And I didn't have to deal with that. But, you know, she had ran her course, bottom line. She had did her work. So someone that is, you know, thinking about the welfare of the person and not their personal, you know, not wanting to let go is typically the toughest one. Okay.
Mhm.
And this is where you would, I guess, put your values of what my life is only worth living if I can. Talk to my family or friends, wake up from a coma, feed, bathe, or take care of myself, be free from pain, live without being hooked up to machines. And I guess as George was saying, the person has to be the one who decides if the person can no longer do the things that they decide are worth living for. And they have to decide whether to, I guess, pull the plug, as they say. They can no longer do the things they wish they can. And then here is this section helps your agent and loved ones know what's most important to you so that they can make decisions about your healthcare that align with those values. So you would put what matters most to me. And for the example is what matters most to me is being able to spend as much time with my family as possible. If I were having a good day, I would be doing the following. I would be sitting in the park with my grandchildren, for example. And is religion or spirituality important to you? And here you can leave specific instructions for what end of life care you would want to receive if 1, you have a terminal condition that will lead to your death in a relatively short period of time, 2, you become permanently unconscious, or 3, realize that the potential risk of treatment will outweigh the potential benefits. So what would you like your end of life instructions to be? And I do not want my life to be prolonged. I want to specify which life prolonging procedures are allowed to be performed, and I want my life to be prolonged as long as possible within the limits of generally accepted healthcare standards.
Click the second one. Click the middle one.
And next. And it sounds like you do not want your life to prolong in some circumstances. Let's be more specific about types of procedures that would be acceptable. What life prolonging procedures would you want administered? Diagnostics, dialysis, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, respirator, surgery, blood transfusions. Would you want artificially administered food and hydration? So
I just did that so people could just see what they should be thinking about for themselves as well.
Well, let's just pick a few and see what's next.
Yeah, pick the second. It's called that one. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Yeah.
Okay. Let's say that, and then next. Oh, and then section you can specify your wishes, location, or end of life care. But before that, let's check out that last option to see if it's different. Oh, and it is. How long would you like medical professionals to keep trying life-sustaining treatments? Indefinitely, or until it becomes clear to my doctors that I'm not going to recover the kind of life I want?
Yeah.
So let's pick indefinitely, see what that gives us. And it goes to this.
It goes back to the same thing. Yeah.
It goes back to the same thing.
Right.
Okay, and where would you like to receive your end of life care? At home, in the hospital, or other? And you would specify where?
What do you think most people pick? If they can.
If they can, I'd say in the hospital, because that's where most medical, but it could be.
Most people want to die at home.
Yeah, at home.
Yeah, rather than being in a cold hospital.
And
hopefully with their family at their side.
Mm-hmm. Would you like to give any of your organs, tissues, or parts upon your death? And then you would specify what organs you want to donate and for what purpose do you want your donation to serve, like a transplant, therapy, research, or education. Oh, well, let's see. Next. And then, are there any other wishes you want to include in this directive? Specify your instructions here. And would you like to execute your advanced healthcare directives with a notary or 2 witnesses?
Two witnesses.
And then this is where you would review all your wishes and make any last minute changes you want to make. And then you click finish and that'll be it.
Now, of course, you want to have those two witnesses sign that in the presence of each other so that well, as always, you can always dispute it, but at least that lessens the chances of it being disputed. You got two people that helped you execute it, agree that it was done. And that way, if somebody comes in and tries to change that, they could dispute it. People do interesting things. I mean, longer I'm in this business, the more stories I have to tell. I had somebody recently tell me that their husband wanted to be cremated. And then she said in the next sentence, I wasn't going to cremate him. I wasn't going to let him go out that way. I buried him. Like, you didn't honor his last wishes? That's what happens when you don't have it in writing. Or family fights, right? Or one person highly emotional is like, no, I don't want to. And the other one's like, but look, she's not going to recover. And of course, there have been miracles, right, where people have recovered. So that runs through all of our minds. It's a very, very emotional situation, which is why you want to make those decisions in advance, because if you wait until a high emotional point, you'll make emotional decisions, not logical.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that, Jorick. There are many families where everybody, grandma and grandpa, told everyone what they wanted to do. And then at the end, then everybody forgets what grandma and grandpa have been saying for all their life, right? So, and then that's when the split comes. So it's better to definitely have everything in writing.
There was a big case, I can't remember the name now. It was in the media almost daily, where this lady was on life support and there was a battle of families. The husband versus her side of the family were in odds as to whether or not they should pull the plug or not. And they literally had to get a court order. They had to go to court to get it done. Because needless to say, the hospital is all right with it as long as they got beds, because it just runs up the medical costs. But the question is, who's going to pay that bill? And as most people know, one of the biggest reasons for bankruptcy is medical expenses.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's no fun to have to deal with that either way. So planning is important.
Mm-hmm.
It's critical you take care of that. And I've had people, I know people that have a clause in their will that says that anybody contest my will and trust are automatically excluded. That'll keep away, especially if you got something to leave, right? That'll keep people from trying to fight with other family members.
That's a great clause to have.
Yeah, people will go, okay.
I think there are a lot of doctors who are encouraging their patients to do this healthcare directive early, instead of waiting until you're over 60 or 70, so you could revisit it, especially now, with the things that are going on with COVID and different illnesses that come up.
And going back, that's something you should review as well. Maybe your views change. Maybe medical technologies changes and gives you an opportunity for, if you have the money, some other exploratory options, so you should review it every now and then and see if your values and beliefs and desires are still the same.
Mm-hmm.
Highly recommend it. Do people do it? Nope. Should they? Yep.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, any questions out there? Wills, trust, beneficiaries, advanced medical directives, and I was talking about the HIPAA form earlier. HIPAA form, any questions on any of that stuff? Who should you talk to? Any questions? Because we're gonna have an early night if
It
not.
would be good if you don't mind going over that HIPAA form.
Well, yeah, the HIPAA form, I can't remember. It's an acronym, actually. It's the health care. Let's Google it real quick. HIPAA. I should know, but I don't. HIPAA. That should be a test question. Who knows? I should have said HIPAA. All right. Healthcare, I should have knew that. Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Needless to say, it's a government form, but it basically gives someone the ability to make your medical decisions, and so that doctors can consult with you about different procedures. Say you're in a coma, you can't make a decision, they want to do a procedure, that's the go-to person that would make those decisions as to whether or not what they should do, and so that they can talk with them, because legally, no, they can't disclose that your medical conditions to someone without that document. So you'll hear a doctor say, "Who is the agent for Miss Johnson?" And I am. Well, do you have your HIPAA form? Because see, they got a CYA cover their assets. Because if you do a procedure and someone doesn't have the authority to authorize it, somebody's going to get an attorney, and generally the hospital is going to pay. So that's why they're so stern on that. Where is the form? I need to have that form before I can talk to you, period. So any questions on that one? Oh, and as I said earlier, if you have young adults that you say you've got a 18, 21-year-old that still stays with you, maybe they're in college and you're still supporting them, they're still your dependent technically, but legally they're not, because they're over 18. And if they were to get in a car accident, end up in the coma in the hospital, the doctor can't talk to you. You can't make the decisions, even though you pay all of their bills. It's just the law.
Mhm.
So you have to have that, or get a court order.
Mhm.
And if it's critical timing, that could mean the difference between life and death.
Any
All right.
more? Any more questions? Questions? I'm just really grateful that. Oh, here's a question here. How is the HIPAA different than the other form?
The HIPAA is just, as it says, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. That's just authorizing someone to make decisions, healthcare decisions. Say if a person's in a hospital or and they need to do surgery, who's going to make that decision if the person's in a coma on a respirator? They can't, obviously. Who is? That form gives them authority to make those decisions and allows the doctor to talk to that person about what procedures they're doing, why, so on and so forth, because without it, they can't disclose that information to anyone other than that person or the person with the HIPAA form. The Advanced Healthcare Directive is you making your final wishes as when to pull the plug, what procedures can be done to keep you alive, how long you want to be kept alive, if you want to be kept alive at all, so on and so forth. And what procedures you authorize to be done. Let's say if, as the form said earlier, do you want them to resuscitate you? You want them to let you go or whatever? You can make those decisions in advance. You're welcome. All right. Any other questions? Just as I always say to people, just do it. I mean, because it creates more problems. I mean, just recently I had a young lady trying to get her trust. She's been a client of mine for about 20 years, and unbeknownst to me, she had cancer, was in remission, contacted me, said, "Oh, I know you've been on me about getting the trust. I'm ready to get it done." Got her signed up on our digital platform for the trust. And I checked in with her frequently to make sure she did it, because her sister called me and told me she had cancer. She didn't even ever tell me. And then unfortunately it came back. And the day after Christmas last year, she passed away at 64 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And had not completed her trust or any of that.
Mm-hmm.
So now her 2 kids have to go through probate, have a probate attorney, have an executor, which is probably the son. But the bottom line, that's a statutory expense. In other words, it has to be paid. So it has a scale, but
Mm-hmm.
I estimated that was going to cost the family at least 30 grand.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's based on a percentage of gross assets, not net assets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you can Google it. It's listed. It's public record. And if you don't have a living trust, your family must go through probate. What is probate? It's a process to make sure, a legal process, to make sure your assets go where you intend them to go, or where they are legally, what's the word I'm looking for? There is a chain of command, if you will, where if you die what is called intestate, without a will, there is a process. Your spouse first,
Mm-hmm.
kids, parents, siblings, all the way down, who gets whatever's left. And if there's, of course, any bickering about it, then it gets in a legal process and costs everybody money. I've heard people not talking to each other for 20, 25 years over $3,500. Like, really? So it is important.
I'm so grateful that Warren Publishing Group is a partner with Freewill.com, because these online services have already empowered, 230,000 Americans. And so I have seen, as in geriatrics, that so many families could eliminate all of the problems and headaches if they would just do their living will and have a durable financial power of attorney and have a beneficiary designation and a healthcare directive. Those are the basic things that would help families to move through the arguing, fighting, and never speaking to each other again, and also saving the estate of your loved one. They worked hard all their lives. They put away money to be able to gift their children with, but they forgot the most important thing, and that is what we are covering with this elder abuse awareness continues. Because if a family member or you don't take care of these things, then you could clearly become a ward of the court, okay? And you would be conserved, and someone else would be administering your money and determining how you want to spend the rest of your life. So it's very important that you take care of the things that we're presenting. So tell yourself in the mirror that you want to take care of this. Tell your family and friends. Additionally, we're going to be doing the Revocable Living Trust next Tuesday. And I'm really grateful and thankful that you all who are here came to receive this valuable information. So at your leisure, you can go to freewill.com and you can visit everything that we have shared the last couple of months. The living will, durable financial power of attorney, beneficiary designation, and healthcare directive. Thank you, Jorick. Do you have any closing remarks?
I just had one I was thinking about. I don't want to sound like it's always negative. I have had those families that came to me and said, how did it go? I'm sorry to hear about your mom, whatever. She said, oh, it went great. Mom had everything planned out. She had it all laid out. All we had to do was follow her instructions. That will allow a person to be able to grieve and get their emotions out of the way and not be making emotional decisions. So there are some good stories. And for those of you that have that in place or have had it happen in your family, you're blessed beyond measure. So with that, I'll say good night.
Thank you all for coming. And hopefully you'll be able to join us next Tuesday for the Revocable Living Trust. Blessings to everyone. Thanks, Jorick and Amy.
Thank you, Antionette, for putting it on.
Thank you.